Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm John Lazarus with Stories Matter and D&E Publishing. Let me read you an excerpt from a manuscript I was sent recently. Jonathan was frightened of women. His heart pounded at the terrifying sight of her naked breasts. But suddenly, his fear disappeared. He touched the breasts and was glad he'd found a woman that reminded him so much of his mother. The first thing that stands out to me is that this piece doesn't really paint a very vivid picture. Unlike most writing about breasts, it doesn't really make me feel anything. I'm told the man is frightened, that the breasts are terrifying, but there isn't much evidence to back up these claims. Show don't tell is one of the golden rules of writing. It's usually the first lesson of any writing seminar, though in my seminars I always spend the first lesson asking the class to write down their greatest fears and directions to their home address. In any case, it's something new writers like the author of the above passage, Dan Schultz of Tempe, Arizona, who asked to remain anonymous, struggle with. We'll break down what show don't tell actually means and how to best use this advice in our writing on this edition of Stories Matter. Today's video is brought to you by Stewman's Trench Coats. You can decide exactly what you want to show with this stylish garment. For over 100 years, Stewman have provided the perfect garment for concealing a naked body, providing the thrifty watch salesman a way to save on real estate, increasing an adolescent's height twofold, or sending hundreds of thousands of men to their deaths for no tactical or political gain. As a writer who likes to keep a moleskin at his side for when inspiration strikes, Stewman's trench coats give me a comfortable, fashionable way to stay prepared while leaving enough room left over for a trusty .357 Magnum or bolt-action rifle. Visit your local Stewman's for more information. In the spirit of this video, instead of telling you how to write, I'll show you examples from students of mine that illustrate new authors' struggles. I've also provided their emails in case you'd like to send them words of advice and encouragement. Our first excerpt is from Doug Martzell of Nome, Alaska, who was writing about his dead wife, a topic he incidentally kept coming back to. He writes, "She was a meticulous woman and could get overbearing at times, with ginger hair and pallid skin." Mistake 1. Using adjectives instead of action and details. So, a big mistake Doug makes, besides failing to get over it and write about a more interesting topic, is that there's really nothing to grab onto here. I mean, if he's really hoping to bring back his wife to life in his writing, it would be more memorable to show her being meticulous or provide a detail about her gingerness that's important to her character. After a lot of coaching and back and forths, I got Doug to brainstorm specific ways his wife was meticulous. Eventually, he came up with this. Every Friday night after work, I'd come home to find her waiting in the bathroom with a bottle of Barbasol, a straight razor, and some antiseptic. Then I'd strip nude and sit in this seatless chair with special leg restraints. For the next 40 minutes, I'd read the newspaper while she shaved every part of my body below the nose. Beard, neck, chest, arms, legs, testicles, anus. Now, Doug and the rest of the class were a little uncomfortable with this passage. In fact, if I remember correctly, I had to read it aloud after Doug refused. But I told them that a great writer knows the power of specificity. Now we have Janet Kowalski from Davenport, Iowa, who was a big fan of erotic fantasy thrillers. This excerpt comes from an exercise where I asked the class to write an allegory for the immigration crisis. Diane saw the potion on the table, drank it, and 1 second later she fell to the floor. Mistake 2. Using weak verbs. Now, I don't want to pick on Janet too much here because her story captured the crisis, convincingly describing what happens when you let just anybody into your country. But the above sentence just doesn't evoke any feelings. With some simple substitutions, it's much more effective. Diane gazed into the bubbling potion, guzzled it, and instantly crashed to the floor. Just by changing the verbs, we understand that Diane is mesmerized by the drink, that she craves it, and that it inflicts violence on her. Now, this example might seem a little strange, but in her story, a cartel of demons has flooded the potion market with a super strong mind control drug that has contaminated all the other party potions, and it's all Joe Biden's fault. The next excerpt comes from Jamil Bakri, a young writer from Denver, Colorado, who showed a ton of promise, but unfortunately didn't have enough money to pay for more than 6 weeks of classes. He writes, Jennifer took charge of the meeting. She wasn't going to let anyone in her way. The deal had to go through. Mistake 3. Not using dialogue. Now, Jamil's mistake is understandable. After all, he's been deaf since birth and has never actually had a verbal conversation with anyone. But he knew sign language, and I assume the principle is still basically the same. Plus, when I asked if he'd ever seen movies, he said yes. Now, after Jamil's check bounced and the people at the Learning Annex told me that his disability insurance couldn't cover my class fees, I instead got the rest of the class to rework Jamil's piece. My favorite rewrite was this one. "This is how it's going to go, fuckheads," Jennifer shouted as she entered the conference room. "Asking price is $25 million. They try to lowball you boys, just tuck them up inside yourself." See, to me, that's how business people sound. I can vividly picture the kind of woman Jennifer is. Tight black office girl skirt, full pouty lips, tits like a pair of surface-to-air missiles. Our final passage comes from Jacqueline Carlisle from Nashville, Tennessee, who is writing a short story about a woman whose husband goes off to fight in a war. Her wet lips parted and her tongue began to rapidly adjust its position. Swells of hot air rose up through her throat, and as she siphoned it through her larynx and set it careening around her uvula, it met her pallid teeth and crimson lips, creating odd vibrations that rose and fell in pitch. A great symphony had commenced. Mistake 4, showing too much. Now, many authors like Jacqueline here show don't tell, and they think they can't ever tell anything. But a story would go on forever if you only showed. As a writer, you have to decide what's worth glossing over. For example, when I write most of my stories, I come to realize it's not really important what the female characters do or say or want or feel. After a bit of convincing, I got Jacqueline to simplify her passage to this. She ordered 2 cheese pizzas and a large onion rings. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different on the outro this time. Instead of my author quote of the week or this day in literary history, I am instead going to leave a passage from Blake Colby's Bloodshot, which was the first book released on D&E Publishing. In the comments below, see if you can improve it so that it shows more than it tells. As always, thanks for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. See you on the next one.